What's going on? What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a new episode of the Daniel and Mark Show, brought to you by Hardcore Head Starts. My name is Daniel, and that is obviously the big Marcus Aurelius. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit more interesting. We're leaving the markets alone for a while because they haven't really changed, and we're going to chat about kind of Marky's journey through his, I guess, creative expression.
Yeah.
Is that the right way to talk about it? So,
yeah, creative process, creative expression. Yeah,
something like that. So, Marky, if you do not know, used to make YouTube videos for years. He's amassed himself a following of near on 3,000 followers, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, pretty close. That journey's kind of, I guess, ended as in making YouTube videos and in that kind of format.
Yeah, kind of taking a break from making those investment videos.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, not many people know because Marky hasn't posted any of these, but he's making some more, I guess, creative videos as, I guess Marky says, as a hobby, right? So we're going to kind of work through that difference in between those two different types of content and see how Marky's process is different and how he thinks about it and all. So hope that is interesting for creators out there. So Marky, please. I'm interested, like, in the beginning, right, when you first started YouTube and you were doing all the investment videos, like, what was the incentive back then?
The big thing when you're sort of starting something new and you have no idea what you're doing, you kind of feel silly, right? You kind of feel silly in being in front of a camera, like just naturally, unless you've been in front of a camera, it's a weird feeling. Add in the fact that your footage looks kind of mediocre because it's too dark, you realize you need lighting. And now you've added this light and it's like blinding you, or like it's kind of like a little bit uncomfortable. So now like you become a little bit sort of, if you're already stressed, adding in these extra elements makes you kind of, sort of like it kind of distracts you a little bit. But yeah, like going back to the YouTube channel originally, I created it just to practice speaking. So it was kind of like my own, sort of way of learning to communicate better. So at the time I was in like a sales role or like a customer service role, and I kept getting told that, your soft skills are really important in order to, like if there's one skill you kind of work on, even if you're not like super smart, if you've got good soft skills and you're able to express what you're trying to say clearly or convey what you're trying to say clearly, then, people will sort of pay more attention to you. So like, I think like, like as a kid, I remember I was always like the quiet kid, right? Like I always kind of get awards for like, the quiet achiever and like all that sort of stuff.
Look at
like,
you.
It's kind of like a backhanded compliment. It's like, hey, you're so quiet, but you said something, So
yeah, sure.
I think that kind of stuck with me, and I remember a lot of times in the classroom as a child, right? The teacher would ask questions and that sort of thing, and I would always have the right answer a lot of the times, I felt like, but I was too nervous to like kind of put up my hand and like, speak in turn. So I think that kind of stuck with me even into sort of high school. And then I just kind of thought, like, why am I like this? Why do I even care what people think? So that started the whole process, and I started making videos about, like initially things that like, because put into context, I was 19 years old, right? So I was kind of immature, and I was, sort of talking about, things maybe I didn't completely comprehend. But I was talking about things like whether it's worth going to university, even though at that point I hadn't sort of completed university and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that whole process there was literally just get the reps in, literally record a video every Saturday and release it. And then I started getting all these comments that just said like, hey, your videos really helped me and that sort of thing. And I came across this idea where, you shouldn't be discouraged if your video only gets like 50 views or 100 views, because put that into the context of being in a room and speaking to 50 people, that would be massive, right? You'd probably, even if you're not someone who's confident in speaking, you haven't had that experience, you would probably like be ecstatic after it. Like you'd kind of be,
Oh, absolutely.
adrenaline might sort of kick in a little bit and whatnot. And I think it's a good feeling. So that kind of made me think, just keep making the videos. Don't worry about the views. So that was kind of like my process at the time.
So you said you would shoot on Saturday, edit Saturday, release Saturday?
Yeah, pretty much. Because I hadn't planned a lot. I was just like, I want this video. I want it out. And like thinking about it now, I don't think that's the right approach.
Mm,
Um, I think taking the time to make your videos better, or kind of see it as like a privilege to be able to kind of like share your content. Um,
yeah.
that's kind of like, where my head's kind of at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, what made you? I guess a good question is like, why do you actually start in? Like, where'd you get investing knowledge from, and like, why did you start investing? Have we ever answered that question? Because you made investing content, but like, what got you into
Yeah,
investing originally?
yeah. So whether for good or bad, I had like a friend, a good friend of mine, that during high school we'd often have these conversations about like how we're different. So like it's a bit like, at the time it made me feel like I was different to other people, and that like the typical path of going to university, getting a job, wasn't for me. And that sort of stuck with me for a long time. And I think, yeah, I think that kind of made me try to find, pretty much, it motivated me to do like everything that's different to the way the average person does their things. Because I figured, even if I don't have success, I'll have a greater chance of, sort of ending up like somewhere different. So yeah, I didn't want to work a job that I hated, for like the next like 30, 40 years. So I figured, like, if I start investing and I, find videos about wealth, right, and how to actually become, sort of like financially independent, and, sort of invest for the long term, then that would be sort of like my way out.
And where did like how does you learning about investing
Yeah.
and trying to become wealthy then turn into you making videos about it?
It was a combination of the thing I said earlier around like
Yeah,
just getting the practice like speaking in, so like
yeah,
just getting better at like communicating, and then I just figured, like, like I'm obsessed with markets, right? Like I just research this shit every day.
yeah.
Jenny kind of, looks at me and goes, "Fuck, like you're still on the computer, you're always on your phone and whatever." And naturally, you're going to speak about something that you're thinking about often, right?
Mm,
Otherwise, unless you're kind of doing acting or you're trying to do something different, I think
mm,
naturally you lean into what you already know, like your sort of circle of competence.
yeah. Where were your
Yeah,
like were you picking up off what you were learning and making videos about that at the time, or were you kind of looking at the trendier topics that were going around and making videos on that? Like how were you picking your ideas?
yeah. So like in the beginning, it was just kind of helping with like basic information where I know it would make a difference. So like just showing people who had never bought shares before what that process can kind of look like. So, literally having a screen share on, showing them, like you can literally Google ASX 200. This will show you the companies. This is market capitalization in terms of how large that company is, and not just the price. And then, your options of brokers, being able to, the most simplest one being your bank, like just going to Commonwealth or ANZ or NAB or whoever you're banking with, and then just like setting up a share trading account with them from there.
Hmm.
So that
Damn.
was the kind of videos, yeah. And that video actually got like I don't know, like 70,000 views or something. So,
Yeah, I'm looking
um,
through right now. Is that you? That's your most viewed, isn't it?
yeah, I think so. I think so. That one and how to buy Bitcoin. I think.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
two popped for obvious reasons, I think.
yeah. I think. Look, I mean that kind of gives me like a bit of clout. I can go. I was looking at Bitcoin in 2017.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
What,
but yeah,
dude? That's
go
crazy. What's that
on.
feel like getting 70,000 views as a new career? Like a, sure, that might have been like, when was that? What? How long into that was your YouTube career? Like, it wouldn't wasn't in
Uh
the beginning.
yeah. So like, this all sort of happened over like the span of a year. But then, I found like when you start branching out from the videos that you normally make, the algorithm gets a bit confused. It doesn't know like what
Mm,
category to put you in. So then you
hmm
start dropping off views. So it was I kind of like got I wanted to mix things up, and I've got this like sort of mindset where like I'm always dabbling on new things. So like I can't stick to one thing, which is like a good thing or a bad thing.
mm,
But it sort of led me down like wanting to make videos about like uh, self development and like personal growth and that sort of thing, rather than the
mm,
investment videos. And those videos would get like a fifth or like a tenth of like the views that the other videos would get.
mm,
But there'd still be like positive feedback from people, which was encouraging. But yeah,
mm,
I found that making those investment videos, when I was actually showing how to videos, that actually helps somebody. Whereas like when I just make a video and I talk about, hey, yes, I think Ethereum's going to go to $2,000. It's kind of like it's just like it's just like commentary. So
yeah. You're just
I
trying to be
found,
historically correct for like reputation and shit like that.
yeah, that's right, and also people are going to lean into sort of you know like searching up how to buy stocks, no matter like what time, right? But if you're talking about something that happened where Tesla started accepting Bitcoin, that's only relevant for that month.
Mm,
Yeah,
absolutely. Especially when everyone around them is and stuff like that. It's not even news at that point. It's just like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
how
It
about
is what it
how,
is.
how about yourself? Like, like you. I remember you guys made like a bit of content in the early days, and I know like that content sort of gave me, I guess like a bit of a connection with you guys, made me kind of want to reach out to you guys, which I
Mm,
eventually did. But then I also remember when I first sort of caught up with started hanging out with you guys. You guys kind of mentioned like you didn't want to release content because you didn't unless you knew what you were talking about, like that sort of thing. And I
mm,
found that really intriguing because that's pretty much like the opposite of like how I saw things. I was like, fuck, I just got to get content out and just get the
mm.
reps in because I don't know shit. Like it's just how you learn.
Yeah. I think it's at the end of the day, it's always going to be somewhere slightly in the middle. But
Yeah,
what we care about most, like all of us, and I'm sure you'd agree with this definitely now,
yeah,
is like we care about reputation more than anything.
mm,
Not in the childish sense of what people think of you, but it is important because reputation is power, and it's as simple as that. And I don't want anything I've ever said to steer someone down a path that hurts them,
yeah,
right? Because that affects my reputation. They look at me poorly, then they tell everyone else around, and et cetera, et cetera, and it just doesn't play out well. So
right,
everything that we want to use with our voice, everything we say with our voice has to be as valuable as possible and has to help as many people as possible. It has to be truthful
yeah,
because every time you say something that is correct and does help someone, you're slowly building that little bit of reputation up.
yeah,
It's like that consistency thing we were talking about before the podcast. If you have the
mm,
consistency of showing the person that you are, your reputation will build.
mm,
And if you do say things that are not true, and you get caught out because you're just trying to get a soundbite or something like that, it may pop off a video and you may get a few thousand views or something like that. But the people who know better and all the people it affects, it'll hurt your reputation with them, and that's what's important.
yeah. And did you like? Did you ever feel like you were making content that you kind of reflected on and went like, maybe this isn't like you don't want people to see it, or
Yeah. So I mean, I was young as hell then, so all the content I was like, I was, I would get into weird state patches where it's like I would make a little bit of content and then I would
right?
just stop making content because I'm like, fuck, it's not good enough. But then in
Yeah,
those patches where I was making content, I was like, I don't give a fuck about anyone.
yeah,
As in,
yeah.
not
That's
saying I don't care, as in like I don't care what people think. So I would just
yeah,
pump it, if that makes sense. Make sure it's good
yeah,
as the best I can, but like the Gary V model in regards to quality, document, don't create.
mm,
Pump whatever you're saying is actually good, but just the quality of it, just crack it out there. It doesn't matter. But I don't know. I just didn't have the motivation or the drive back then to be able to continue on with it. And saying that, Dylan and Sama, like Sama created some ridiculous vlogs.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they
I
were
remember that.
great. Yeah, Sama
Yeah,
was phenomenal at it, and Dylan obviously had he did a lot of videos himself previously, and then he had an editor as well for a time there.
yeah.
So he created some great stuff as well, and I just couldn't catch on to it at that stage. It just wasn't. I don't know, just wasn't hitting me as well.
What do you why do you think that is, and like how do you think that's changed now?
Yeah, I don't. I think I don't know really the answer. Like I think a cop out answer is like, oh, I'm just not a creative person.
Yeah,
Um, because I think that's what I've used previously. I think creativity, whatever it is defined as, is like it's pretty difficult, but it takes work to actually find your own creativeness. Like you have to work at it. You have to be
mm,
disciplined. You have to continue to try, etc., etc.
mm. I
Yeah,
think for a little while I used to contemplate that question too, and then really I just I redefine what creativity means to me. So it's pretty much like adding color to who I am as a person, and just anytime I do something that I wouldn't normally do, that's in my own definition. That's like me working on my creativity.
Hmm. Oh, and yeah, back to your point of like, why wasn't I driven to
Yeah,
make content back then? I think it was just that again, like all things that we talk about, it's pretty much just a lack of knowledge.
yeah,
Like I don't think I truly understood the vision of what we are trying to do at Hardcore. I didn't understand the importance of um, what we were trying to do. I didn't have the feeling of responsibility to help people yet because I was a kid,
yeah.
and it just hadn't got me yet. So, but that's all pretty much changed now,
Hmm.
and I
What?
debate other things in my head.
So what has it been like to sort of step back into your creative process and start making videos, editing videos, and uh, sort of being a content creator again?
Yeah, well, it's a more of a like a knowledge first approach, if that makes sense. It's like try and find out
Yeah,
what you're doing, and by doing, you will kind of love it, if that makes sense.
yeah,
It's just like continuously doing it, continuously doing it, continuously doing it, and now like I get to find a little different way that I edit, if that makes sense. Or like I put a certain effect on something, and it's that Kaizen approach of always progressing and find different things to do, and et cetera, et cetera. Um,
yeah,
and then you start to kind of find how to tell stories, all that kind of stuff, which is
yeah,
kind of where you're at the moment. It's like you've gone away from, not that your previous videos weren't creative because they were, but now
yeah.
you're on like, you're making actual like almost, I
Short
don't know what,
films, I
short
guess.
films,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So like
yeah,
your
yeah.
creative expression is pretty much like peaking at the moment. It's like an all time high. So like what's led to that?
Yeah, it makes me realize that like uh, you don't have to do that much more to start going from like really boring videos to better videos. Um, I I the reason why like I started making those short films was I got like an ad, or I saw like Casey Neistat, like which is like a vlogger from 2008 2009.
He's the
Um,
OG. If you're a
yeah,
creator and
what?
you don't know Casey Neistat, you lost
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, like if you were ever into vlogs and you were semi interested in like tech, back in like 08, 09, then yeah, you'd probably know of Casey Neistat. And I just saw the video and I just thought like, like 18-year-old me would never have bought this course because I would have just thought, fuck, that's a big investment. I don't have the money for that. I'll put that towards like stocks or whatever. But now I kind of realize beyond like a certain threshold of like, of like when your income starts to increase, there isn't that much money is going to materially improve your life. So like one of the best investments is actually knowledge and to learn from people who are actually, the experts, right? So that kind of shifted my mentality. And was the course expensive? Yeah, it was like, I think like $250. And I thought, fuck, like I would never spend that amount of cash on like a course that goes for like 10 days or 30 days or whatever it was. So, I've completed the course now. And what it taught me was like one of the like fascinating things and great things about the course was you had peers. So like you'd have these videos. There was probably like 15 hours of footage from Casey Neistat all together, right? But he'd release these footage like per day, and you'd get an assignment, and then you'd get all your peers doing the assignment, and then you'd get feedback from your peers, and you'd also give feedback. So it made me realize, how people were actually like cutting scenes together. And one of the big things I realized with the short filmmaking was once you like show a scene for a few seconds and you've achieved what you're trying to convey with those few frames, then you could probably cut that clip and move on to the next one. If there's more in the video, right, that sort of follows, then that scene can draw out. But like, let's say, for example, the garage door opening, right? Because we're showing like a scene where I'm cleaning the car. The garage door starts at the bottom, it heads up. As soon as you sort of see the headlights, you realize it's a car. Cut, move on to the next thing. You don't need to see the whole car. I don't have a Ferrari or a Lambo that, that's dramatic enough. So yeah, that's kind of made me really push like the creative juices and kind of think about how to make videos differently. And a big thing too is commentary helps move the story, but also having footage over the commentary is more interesting than just having like a talking headshot, unless the content that you're talking about is really, really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd say something that I've been working on recently and kind of with the boys' help as well is just I've been also really trying to find my style, editing, et cetera. And is one thing I struggled with early was the attention span of people.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about there and the quick cuts, and they help a story move and progress, and they allow, the person to not get bored quickly and allows them to fill in the gaps in their own head, which keeps them engaged. What I struggle with is because I pretty much only watch long form content. Is I struggled with like my own bias of looking at a video and be like, yeah, well, I want the full context. I want the full drawn out. I want the slow kind of draw through a film, et cetera, whether that be through the video as well. But people are just not like that these days.
Yeah.
People want quick cuts. They want the story to evolve as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I'm like, so now the point is we're making TikToks and stuff like that. And like you can't have, a 5 second, like you can barely have a 5 to 10 second panning shot and people will just crack it,
Yeah. Yeah. I think the way I kind of say it is it's on the onus. The onus is on the content creator to build the audience and draw their attention. So if what you're doing isn't working, then you need to, like create like a way so that people are drawn into the long form content. And the way you learn that is perhaps like you find long form content that, people of the same audience, right? There's people who would also listen to the other long form content, study it and try to figure out like what works for them. And you might find out like maybe it doesn't work. You need to you need to bring your own thing. And um, I think, you sort of go wide and deep, right? Like, wide, when you're going wide, I think the TikTok videos allows you to show more and more variety and more quickly. Whereas like, I think the long form content, you learn like really big nuggets and you kind of feel like you're hanging out with hardcore head start, like hanging out with us, right? So I think they have different purposes, but for the most part, um, people are busy, like people are doing lots of things. So I think people definitely sort of, as a whole, probably are more drawn to sort of like your 20-30 minute video, because you can kind of watch that while you're, having dinner, or you can watch it while you're sort of going on a walk, or whatever it is.
I think that what I was struggling with is trying to get the same amount of value across that you'd get in a long form video into a short video,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
it's impossible to really get it across because you're never going to be able to explain or create context the way you will in a long form video. But also the value I've found is different.
Mm.
So other than value as in like, people learning something, you're giving people what they want.
Yeah.
You're giving them that entertainment. And at the end of the day, eyeballs is what you need. Like you get eyeballs, then you have the chance to create that value at a different point for people.
Yeah. I think like one thing I've kind of learnt from like creating those short films is, sort of like when you're early, just experiment and try to do things differently, see what catches on. Don't worry about the algorithm too much, because at least you can figure out and go, look, I really enjoy making this type of content, so I'll keep making that kind of content, and you'll be focused and you won't get distracted and do what I did, like start with like investments and then start talking about like personal growth. And while like the content's good, it's probably like for like a different channel potentially.
What the cool thing is what you're talking about in the Casey Neistat course is you've got that quick feedback loop as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that's what we've all got a hardcore is like you made that short film, you were able to send it to me and to a few of your other friends and get like, and you're also to the people in, I'm sure, the Casey Neistat group and get that feedback
Yeah,
as quick as possible. And at hardcore, like, we're creating those TikToks at the moment.
yeah,
If they're not up to scratch or they're not this, they're not that, et cetera, before we post them, we have that feedback loop in the house
mm.
and through our boys like yourself and the other boys outside who are in hardcore.
Yeah,
We get that
yeah.
quick feedback loop.
That's a really good point. I think having surrounding yourself with other content creators, surrounding yourself with people who are doing what you're doing, allows you to, sort of see your process differently and how you could improve, or what worked, what didn't work, and how you can make your videos better, right? So you're right. You're 100% right. If you've got um, people close to you, that's always going to make a difference. Like that video I've only shared with you and Jenny and like her siblings, so no one else has seen it. But that's the point. Like I know it's a big improvement in what I've created in the past, because I know like I made like some like I made like a Japan vlog where like when I was like traveling around Japan, but this was even better than that. And I know like it's not about like getting like, sort of like I'm at a point where I'm still learning, so I don't really need, sort of validation from other people. I just need to
Yeah.
keep creating and learn what works, what doesn't work on my own, or
And
just
it's
have a few
interesting, right?
close people. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
It's what creates like the want to create more is like when you're finding out new ways to do something or
Yeah,
new ways to, add an effect or something or to a new shot you can take, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's what makes it fun. That's what I'm finding anyway. Is like I would do it once, get the motivation to do it once. Fuck, I
yeah.
love doing that. And then, can't be bothered
There's
because
this,
there's no consistency there.
yeah, there's this Warren Buffett like I think like turns out like it wasn't even from him, but like it gets called the Warren Buffett rule, which is like the 25-5 rule, which is
Yeah.
where you list like 25 things that you could potentially work on, and then you pretty much cross out everything except the 5 things that you think are like the highest impact or like the ones that are most interesting to you. And then in order to get more of what you want, you pretty much have to eliminate and make sure that like at all costs you don't get distracted by the other 20 things that are on that list. So I think like that process can work when you're tackling like the creative process too. So number one, that teaches you don't just go down and do something when you've got like one or two ideas. Push yourself and just write down everything you can think of. Try to aim for like 20 or 25 ideas. And that will kind of make you not like sort of shut down an idea, because um, interesting videos usually come off the back of a different angle on a boring topic. You know what I mean? You don't often have to have an interesting topic. You can have something that's like seems quite mundane, but you look at it from a certain perspective and now it looks interesting. It's like like if you talk about your experience of having cold showers, right, that might kind of be interesting, right? But someone else might go, I did cold showers for 30 days and I documented how I felt like through those 30 days. That can make something that's kind of standard a bit more interesting.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. People, yeah, there's a guy called Bobby Miles. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't. What does he
I
do?
talk, I talk about him a lot, but he's
Mm.
he creates again like short films, like I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour long, stuff like
Mm.
that, and they're on a range of different topics. He's done one he's done like a 650 mile, what was it, kilometers, 650 kilometer race.
Sorry, I have seen that. Is that the one where like for 24 hours, like he comes back, he does like a task and he runs?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
did
the
we
one now.
watch that at the house?
Yeah, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that guy. So like that in concept, right? Or there's one where he just plants 1,000 trees in 24
Mm.
hours. Like that concept of just planting trees can be boring, but because he's
Yeah,
so good at storytelling, he
yeah,
creates like just the honestly, he creates some freaking magic in my opinion. It's great. I love
yeah,
it. I watch every single video he puts out. He's amazing. So,
yeah.
but so would you say you enjoy making, what you're doing now, making these videos more than you did previously? Because you're making them now for like, not for no reason, but for like passion, for hobby, et cetera, because you enjoy making, because you want to get better. The previous,
Mm.
there was like maybe not like a money incentive, but an exposure, a clout incentive, if that makes sense. Like, do you enjoy
Yeah,
making them now more or before?
yeah. So like when I made the videos back then, it was to practice speaking, right? These videos, like for example, you saw the video; it was like 4 minutes long,
Mm,
and there's barely any speaking in it. It's mostly like just montage, like sort of like shots and stuff. So
mm,
uh, making it for different reasons. I'm kind of exploring framing. I'm exploring transitions. I'm exploring, editing to music. It's completely different to making a video which talks about if I think Ethereum's going to go to the moon and if we should sell
yeah,
or not.
absolutely. It's really different.
Yeah, I love
But you
it,
prefer
and
this now, yeah?
100%. And I think TikTok doesn't get a lot of credit, but you have to be bloody creative, and it takes a lot of work for like a very short video, right? So like I think it teaches you to be creative. So I think anytime you get a platform that's doing things a little bit differently, if you lean into that and you try to learn the platform, you're going to be sort of um, you're going to be creating content that appeals to a wider audience, because that's trending, right?
Mm. There's this guy on TikTok that, like, to your point, there's a guy on TikTok.
Mm.
I don't know his name, but I'll put it on maybe on the screen here. And he uh, he starts off every video with this like one tagline. It's like, "Do you want to go on a journey with me?"
Yeah,
Right? You're like, okay, what the? Do you want to go on a journey with me? No, all right, we'll see. And then after that, he goes, "Too bad you're coming." And then this dude literally takes you on a journey with him
yeah,
through the wilderness, through like kayaking. He treks mountains. Like, so this guy has made that short, little comment, and then he spent 3/4 of the day walking up a cliff like a mountain, stuff like that. Maybe doing what he was going to do anyway, so he is just documenting it. But the amount of
Yeah.
work necessary to make that look
Mm.
good, like, is pretty intense. So
Yeah.
there are quality creators and a lot of people who put in a lot of effort on TikTok,
Yeah.
and those videos bang.
Well, put it this way, like I recorded, like, when I was doing my Japan vlog, I I put it together in like 3 hours or something, and it was like 8 minutes of footage. People spend like fucking like 300 hours on like an 8 minute video, and
Mm.
like I'm sitting there like, oh yep, that's good enough. Like,
Yeah.
so I think people take it to the extreme, right? Like, if you spend like 7 or 8 hours on like a 30-second video, you're going to have to make those 30 seconds count, and you're constantly thinking like, how can I fix this, how can I make it more interesting, how can I sort of make this video like hold
Mm.
attention.
It depends what you're going for as well. Is like there's a
Mm.
whole debate over like quality content, but not posting so often, or it's like post as regularly as possible and just throw it off the camera and just off the phone, I should say, and just pump it out there and get it out there and uh,
Yeah.
just pump out as much quality
Yeah.
content as possible. So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
100%. I think, yeah, I like Gary Vee's approach. When you're new, just pump out heaps of content, because you're going to learn. Like, speed
Yeah.
trumps quality in the beginning, I feel like. Just because, like, what often happens when you're doing something that you've never done before, or like it's outside of your circle of competence, you constantly run into these roadblocks, yeah? And for someone who's new, that can kind of dishearten you. Whereas, like, if you kind of, perfect example, Casey Neistat video, the first project was on Toby, my dog, right? And you could only record the video with your phone. You couldn't use any other tools. And I've got all these tools that I can use, yeah? But that forces you to remove the distractions and just kind of move quickly, and you can sort of think about what's important. So uh, I'd say almost like, if you're starting from scratch, then speed works better. But like, if you're someone who's maybe spent like 3 or 4 years doing something similar, but now like you're sort of on TV and radio, but now you're kind of making videos on YouTube, you've got that experience, then yeah, I'd say quality is better and releasing less. But I've seen
Yeah.
both of them work really well.
Absolutely. Have you got? Sorry, you go.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just going to say, I was just going to say, it's been a really interesting topic to cover, the creative process for both
Yeah,
of us.
absolutely. I think it's a little bit different as well. So maybe people who are interested enjoyed it as well. If you're not so interested in the creator space, maybe think about it. I don't know. I don't know what the right thing to say there is, but I've got nothing left. What about you?
Yeah, just go out, create, just do shit. Like, if you're, if you're sort of a little self-conscious, or you kind of not ready to put it out in the world, create it for yourself. There's no excuse.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone, make sure to like the video. Please comment so that we know what you're thinking. We love to see them. Please click notification bell to know when we upload, and share this with all your friends, especially the people who create on a regular basis. Keep them motivated. That is all I've got. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye.
If you guys are listening, we love you.
Laters. Bye.